When we talk about global conflict, you often hear that phrase, before we go to war.
Hmm,
It sounds like a call for reflection, a deep pause.
right. But what should we be reflecting on specifically?
Exactly. If we're really going to pause, what are we looking at?
Well, our deep dive today argues it has to be the absolute, unvarnished human cost.
Hmm.
We're using John Hersey's amazing 1946 work, Hiroshima, as our guide, really.
Okay.
The mission here is to strip away all that jargon, the strategic talk, and understand what that bombing on August 6th, 1945 really teaches us when we stop counting megatons.
And start counting lives, individual lives.
Precisely. Counting the cost in human souls, as the source material puts it.
And the source material kicks off with something incredibly visceral, instantly grounding. It mentions the shadows on the walls. Okay, let's unpack this because it's chilling.
Mm-hmm.
These weren't like ash or soot. They were actual permanent silhouettes.
Yeah, created by the intense heat, the thermal radiation from the blast, it basically flash-bleached surfaces.
Except where something or someone blocked the light, leaving this dark shape behind.
A person, a ladder, a handrail.
Wow. So it's the literal shadow of someone's last moment.
It's the physical evidence of a life that was there 1 second and then just consumed the next. It forces you right away to confront the violence against just ordinary existence.
Yeah. Hersey's whole point, reading the analysis, was to ditch the politics and focus on that sudden, total end of the mundane.
And the power of that focus was clear almost immediately. I mean, the way it was published was extraordinary.
Right, the New Yorker decision. August 31st, 1946, barely a year after the bomb, they gave the entire magazine issue over to Hersey's piece.
The whole thing, 30,000 words, no cartoons, no ads, no other stories, just Hiroshima.
That's his statement.
A huge editorial statement, basically saying nothing else matters this week, you have to read this. And the sources point out, look, the book's never been out of print almost 80 years, sold over 3 million copies.
So it clearly resonated. It became, as someone wrote, part of our ceaseless thinking about world wars and nuclear holocausts.
Absolutely unavoidable. And the way Hersey did it was groundbreaking, too. He went there, less than a year later, interviewed survivors.
Using this style that later got called new journalism.
Yeah, and new journalism, it sounds maybe a bit technical, but what it meant for Hersey was using techniques you usually find in novels.
Like scene setting, really getting into people's heads.
Exactly. Using those literary tools, detailed descriptions, internal thoughts, the subjective feeling of it all, but to tell a devastatingly true story.
So he wasn't just giving you facts, he was putting you right there with the people experiencing those facts.
That was the goal. To make you feel how August 6th started as just another Tuesday morning, someone making breakfast, someone else tidying up.
And then how utterly that ordinary reality was just obliterated in an instant.
And this style, this new journalism approach, let him completely sidestep the usual political framing. Which brings us to the next key point from the sources. The problem with passive language in war.
Ah, right. The critique of how we talk about it all, abstractions like strategic necessity or geopolitical factors.
And that passive voice you mentioned, casualties were sustained.
Yeah, or a decision was made. It just sort of floats there. Who sustained them? Who decided? It removes the agency, the humanity.
Hersey just refused that. By digging deep into these narratives, he got rid of all the abstraction. He focused on just 6 individuals.
Only 6 people.
Only 6. And in doing that, you suddenly shift from this huge, almost unimaginable number like 140,000 casualties to the specific, awful details of 6 lives being actively, violently ruined.
Why just 6, though? Did the sources say why he limited it like that?
The analysis suggests it was about forcing intimacy. You couldn't skim, you couldn't just generalize the horror. You had to follow, say, Mrs. Nakamura. Yes, the tailor's widow. You're with her as she's desperately trying to pull her kids out of the rubble of their house, knowing this massive firestorm is bearing down on them. That's the cost right there. Active, immediate.
And the physical toll, too. Mrs. Saki, her leg just crushed under a heavy bookshelf, lying there for days in agony, disabled for life.
Right. Or Dr. Fuji, injured so badly he could never really practice medicine properly again. His whole professional life gone.
And then the flip side, the burden on those who weren't immediately incapacitated.
Like Dr. Sasaki. He was relatively unharmed physically, but then faced this impossible task, treating thousands upon thousands of horrifically injured people.
With almost nothing. No supplies, no help, no rest. Just him, one of the few doctors still standing.
Hersey makes you feel the crushing weight of that responsibility, their active pain and struggle. You can't just retreat into numbers.
Something the source material highlights, maybe surprisingly for some, is how central Christian figures were. Reverend Tanimoto and Father Kleinsorge.
Yes, a Methodist pastor and a German Jesuit priest. They're key witnesses in Hersey's account, and they were right there, helping people, using whatever strength they had left.
Even as the radiation sickness was starting to take hold, invisibly.
And it connects faith directly to action, doesn't it?
Mm.
In the middle of absolute hell. Father Kleinsorge, for instance, he never really got his health back, died years later from the radiation effects.
Wow.
But the sources note he stayed in Japan, became a Japanese citizen, basically. He was buried there. He really lived out that Bible verse he apparently quoted from 1 Corinthians. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. A total commitment.
And that commitment put him face to face with scenes that, well, the source material describes them as profoundly disturbing, hard to shake.
He found a group of soldiers, maybe 20 of them, by the river, and they were just in a nightmarish state.
The description is graphic. Faces totally burned, eye sockets hollow.
The fluid from their melted eyes running down their cheeks. It's an incredibly brutal image, bringing home the sheer physical violence of the heat.
But the part that just hits you, the source points this out, is the agony underneath the visible horror.
Yeah. These men were alive,
Yeah,
conscious, in unimaginable pain,
but they had no idea they were blind for life.
completely unaware. The destruction was so fast, so total, they couldn't even process the full extent of what had just happened to them.
That's beyond comprehension.
It forces you, the reader, to sit with the consequences of the decisions made far away, the depth of suffering that goes way beyond that initial flash. And that cost, it's not just history. The source analysis makes a point of this. The cost is still being paid by the survivors, the Hibakusha.
Right, that's the Japanese term for the people affected by the bombs, those who live through it and carry the effects, radiation sickness, the trauma.
The memories etched into their souls, as the source says. And it wasn't just medical. There was a social cost, too. Well, the sources mention that for years, even decades, many Habakusha faced discrimination, prejudice around marriage, finding jobs, all because of fear about radiation, even though they were the victims.
So another layer of suffering on top of the physical injury is just awful.
It really is. And the ultimate cost, as the source material frames it, is really about stolen futures.
Yeah. It cost the young man who never grows old, the couple who never gets that anniversary.
Tens of thousands of futures, just erased in an instant. The source material even uses a religious framework to convey this, suggesting it interrupted God's plans for hope and a future, referencing Jeremiah 29.11.
It underlines the sheer scale of the loss, not just lives ended, but all that potential. Decades of living, loving, creating, just gone.
Violently erased.
Which is why the memory is so consciously preserved, isn't it? The Hiroshima Peace Memorial part gets mentioned.
Dedicated to the city's unique, terrible legacy, honoring up to 140,000 victims, direct and indirect. It's a physical reminder, a refusal to forget. Hashtag Shay Outro. And linking this back, the whole point of Hersey's work, and really our deep dive today, it isn't about making a specific political argument. It's more fundamental.
It's a demand for empathy.
Yes, a demand that we refuse to let people become numbers, statistics. Before we ever consider war, we have to feel the weight of what it costs in those specific human details.
Like Mrs. Nakamura digging through rubble for her children.
Exactly. Or those unnamed thousands who only left a shadow on a wall.
Or Reverend Tanimoto trying desperately to help people, Father Kleinsorge giving his own strength. It's at that moment everything changes, and it never, ever changes back.
The analysis frames it as a necessary friction. We have to keep thinking about this loss.
So the final thought for you listening is this. If a book like Hiroshima, dedicated entirely to the specific human agony of war, has stayed in print, constantly read, for nearly 80 years, what does that enduring need to remember tell you about our ability, maybe our struggle to actually learn from history?